I woke up on the floor in a room with no windows, wearing white. The carpet smelled like perfume and rust. Not fresh perfume either. That old half-dried kind that sticks to thrift store curtains and dead people's pillows. My cheek was pressed against the seam where the wall met the floor, and for a second, I thought I was still dreaming. Then I moved. Every part of me ached. My fingers were sore, stiff, bruised like I'd been clawing at something. My nails were cracked, one bleeding slightly at the corner, and my dress. Ugh. The dress was still on. A full wedding gown, tight bodice, too clean, too fitted. The satin sleeves were slightly torn at the shoulder seams like someone had dragged me into it. Or I'd fought my way out. I didn't remember saying yes. I didn't remember getting engaged. I didn't remember who I was supposed to marry. But the dress fit perfectly. The mirror above the vanity was shattered. Not just broken, shattered. The glass shards curled inward like they'd tried to catch something before it escaped. My reflection was split across a dozen jagged pieces. In one, my left eye looked swollen. In another, my mouth was twisted like I was mid-scream. There was a veil hanging on the back of the vanity chair. It was damp, stained with something dark along the bottom edge. I didn't want to touch it. I didn't want to know what it was. I forced myself to stand. My legs shook underneath the layers of fabric. My left heel was missing. My skin beneath the dress was clammy and cold. And still, I was alone. No phone, no door. Just a heavy armoire in the corner, a locked vanity drawer, and a brass light fixture overhead that kept flickering like it was trying to die. I don't know how long I stood there, just breathing, trying not to cry. I don't know where I am, but I'm in white. And I think someone was watching when I woke up. I sat on the edge of the bed, trying not to breathe too loud. The silence was heavy, too heavy for a hotel or guest suite, or whatever this was supposed to be. No humming vents, no cars, no wind. Just that buzzing ceiling light and my own heartbeat, ticking behind my ribs like it was counting something down. The dress wasn't comfortable. It should have been. The fit was exact, like it was tailored for me. But the fabric clung in all the wrong ways. There was a strange weight to it, a pressure in the seams, like the gown was remembering every person who'd worn it before me. Or maybe it just wanted to be tighter, tighter and tighter, until I couldn't breathe. I ran my fingers down the bodice looking for a zipper. Nothing. No zipper, no buttons, not even a clasp. The seams were clean, too clean. I grabbed a handful of the skirt and flipped the hem up. That's when I saw them. Names. Tiny, cursive letters stitched into the lining, just above the ankle. Pale thread, not printed. Sewn in. I blinked, leaned closer. My hands were shaking. Harold, Mimi, Viv, all lowercase, soft loops and delicate curls, like someone had taken their time. The kind of stitching you'd find on a handkerchief or a gravestone. I didn't recognise a single one. I told myself it was just a list. Maybe the seamstress signed her work. Maybe these were models, friends, a weird designer thing. That's what I wanted to believe. But there was something about the way they were positioned, exactly equidistant, each a name's length apart, that made my stomach turn. And then I saw the bottom edge. One of the threads was twitching. Not wildly, just a faint movement, a gentle sway, like it was reacting to something I couldn't hear. I dropped the hem. My throat felt dry. I don't know who these people are. I don't know why their names are inside my dress. But one of them was already coming undone. The light above me flickered again. I stood up too fast. The skirt of the dress caught on the corner of the vanity and nearly yanked me back down. My ribs hurt. I didn't remember falling before, but my bones were starting to tell a different story. There was no door, no handle, no knob. Just a blank panel beside the mirror with a brass outline like something had been removed. I kicked it once, weakly, but the echo it gave back was wrong, hollow and deep, like a mouth that didn't want to chew. I turned toward the corner. There was a television mounted high on the wall. I hadn't noticed it before. Boxy and curved screen. Maybe early 2000s. The kind they bolted into waiting rooms so you couldn't change the channel. There wasn't a remote, and it wasn't plugged into anything. It turned on. Just a soft crackle at first. Then a flash of colour and noise that made me flinch. Static shifted into a local news channel. The screen was slightly green, like something was rotting behind the glass. A woman's voice began to speak. Breaking news. An update on the man found earlier this morning inside his vehicle on Old Road. Authorities have identified him as Harold, 56, a property developer with ties to several wedding venues across the state. My breath caught. I looked down at the hem of my dress. The thread with his name, Harold, was curling, lifting slightly like it was pulling itself loose. The stitching was no longer tight. It was sagging, bleeding, tension. I looked back up. The news anchor kept talking, but the sound was off, like her mouth was half a second ahead of her words. Her smile didn't move. Her eyes didn't blink. But her voice pushed forward like it was stuck on a track that wouldn't stop. Sources claim the man was found with his hands folded. And get this, a mouth full of white lilies. Unclear whether the flowers were placed post-mortem. The image shifted. A parked car. A blurry figure walking behind it. Bride. Satin sleeves. Veil fluttering in a non-existent wind. The camera tried to refocus. It was me, or someone in the same dress. I stumbled back. My heels scraped the floor, and I didn't blink. I couldn't. I just watched as the figure passed the car window, head slightly tilted, like she knew she was being watched, like she was looking into the camera, like she was looking at me. The broadcast glitched. Harold. Harold. The TV shut off. Black screen. Just my reflection staring back at me now, faint in the glass, still in the dress, still here. I tried not to panic. The TV was still off, but I couldn't stop staring at the black screen. It felt like if I looked away, my reflection would move without me. The hem of the dress tickled against my ankles, and I realised I was shivering. That's when I tried to take it off. At first, it was just instinct, like waking from a nightmare in someone else's skin. I reached for the back, fingers searching for a zipper, a button, a hook, anything. There was nothing. Just smooth, perfect fabric. Not even a seam I could dig my nails into. I spun around toward the mirror, trying to twist my body enough to see. Maybe it was hidden beneath the folds. But the mirror was cracked, and every angle showed a different version of me. One where I was crying, one where I was smiling, one where the dress was bleeding down one side. I grabbed the front of the gown and pulled hard. I heard a rip, a soft one, like paper tearing underwater. But when I looked down, there was no tear. Instead, the neckline had changed. The lace had shifted. It wasn't off the shoulder anymore. It was rising, curling up over my collarbones, inching toward my throat like it was trying to protect something or cover it. I yanked harder. This time, the fabric gave way, but not like fabric should. A zipper unzipped itself down my side, and instead of metal teeth, it was thread. Just thread that immediately began to unravel, pulling itself into thin nothingness the second I touched it. The moment I let go, the dress mended. Not sewed, not patched, mended. Like skin closing over a wound. I screamed. I clawed at the sleeves, at the bodice, at the hem. Buttons unfastened under my fingers, then disappeared. The more I tried to undress, the more the dress changed. The waist tightened. The back flared. The fabric shimmered and shifted, like it was being tailored to my fear. It was adapting. It was wearing me. The harder I tried to undress, the more it changed. Like the dress didn't want to leave me alone. I staggered back to the bed, breathing too fast. My chest rose and fell against the stiff satin. I looked down at the hem. The name Harold was gone. Just loose thread now. The second name, Mimi, was starting to twitch. Then I must have fallen asleep, or passed out. The bed didn't feel like a bed. Too cold, too stiff. The mattress didn't give under my weight, and the pillow smelled faintly of bleach. When I opened my eyes again, the TV was already on. No sound, just a flickering image of fire. It looked like a live stream, someone's phone camera catching a blaze from across the street. The angle was tilted, like the person filming had stopped running. The captions at the bottom read, "Developing. House fire in Brambleford Way. Unknown cause. 1 confirmed casualty." I sat up slowly. The dress felt tighter than before. The neckline had climbed fully to my throat, like a mock turtleneck of lace and judgment. The broadcast jumped. Now it showed a close-up of the burning house. The fire wasn't orange, it was white. Blinding white, like wedding lights short-circuiting in a thunderstorm. And behind the smoke, there was a figure, moving through the flames. Veil trailing behind her, dress untouched by the fire. Hands outstretched like she was walking down an aisle no one else could see. The camera zoomed in. I couldn't see her face, just the shape of her body. But I knew the posture. It was mine. No sound, still, just silence and burning. Then, for a single frame, the image glitched. The veil lifted in the flames and her face turned toward the camera. It wasn't mine, but it was wearing my expression. The caption updated. Victim identified. Mimi, 24. My breath caught. I looked down at the hem. Mimi was unraveling now. Her name twitched twice, then tore itself loose. The thread curled and slipped into the seam like it was never there. I didn't sleep again. I couldn't. The TV stayed off, but the silence had changed. It wasn't the same thick emptiness I woke up to. Now it buzzed, not with sound, but with something waiting. I sat cross-legged on the bed. The skirt of the dress pulled around me like a trap. I didn't want to touch it, but it was touching me, always. When I finally worked up the courage to lift the hem again, I found something new. Not a name, a lily. I stared at it, breath catching, heartbeat like a metronome in my throat. Harold. I hadn't touched him, I hadn't met him, but his name had vanished from the dress. And now, this. It was like the gown had taken a piece of him and sewn it into itself. I reached further. Another fragment slid free. This one black, powdery at the corners, still warm in my palm. It smelled faintly of smoke. Ash. Mimi. My fingers curled around it before I could stop myself. It didn't crumble. It held shape, like it wanted to be kept, like it knew where it came from. I let it drop back to the floor and lowered the hem. No more pieces. Not yet. Viv's name was still stitched in clean, steady thread. But I don't think it could stay that way for long. I didn't scream this time. There was no point. No one was coming. But I knew now, this wasn't a relic. It was a record. It was keeping pieces, tiny fragments of each name, stitched in deeper than thread. I walked to the mirror, or what was left of it. Most of the glass was still cracked, but one shard near the bottom had stayed clear. I crouched in front of it. My reflection was breathing harder than I was. I blinked. She didn't. I tilted my head. She was slower. For a full 3 seconds, we weren't the same. Then I remembered something even worse. The photo from earlier on the news. There was a still shot in the first broadcast. A crowd gathered behind the coroner's van. People pointing, filming, crying. One of the figures in the backyard, just out of focus, was looking straight at the camera. She wore white, and I could have sworn she had freckles. I backed away from the mirror. I didn't want to see her again. Meet, or whoever she was. The glass shard near the bottom went dark with my shadow, but I knew she was still in there. Just slower. Just waiting. Then I heard the click. A soft, wet-sounding pop, like a jar opening in reverse. The vanity drawer. I turned and it was open. Not fully. Just enough for me to see the edge of something white peeking out. a slip of glossy paper. I approached it like it might bite. My feet were bare, cold. The dress made a soft swishing sound with every step, like it was whispering to itself. I reached out and slid the drawer open. Inside was a photo, an actual physical photograph. Matte finish, no date, no writing. Just the frozen image of a wedding, a bride in white. Me. Standing in front of the altar, bouquet in hand, veil over my face. The lace matched the gown I was wearing down to the tiny details on the cuffs. My posture was rigid, spine too straight, like I was posing for someone I didn't want to see. There were people behind me, rows of them, all turned away from the camera. Their faces were blurred, not by the photo's focus, but by design, like someone had gone in and smudged them out with a fingerprint or heat. All except one, a girl in the back row, too far to make out clearly. Her shape looked familiar, long dark hair, slight shoulders, head tilted, and even through the distortion, I saw a flash of something, freckles. I blinked, and when I looked again, her face was gone, scratched out, not smudged, stitched, like someone had taken thread and sewn directly into the photo, dragging a dark line across her features. Then I looked at the bride again, at myself, and I realised my own face had been tampered with too, but not erased, covered. Beneath the veil sewn over my face was a tiny line of thread forming letters. I leaned closer, heart pounding in my throat. The thread spelled one word. Yes. The photo slipped from my fingers and landed face down on the vanity. I didn't pick it up. I didn't want to see my own stitched over face again. I didn't want to know what happened before that picture was taken, or what I had said yes to, or who had taken it in the first place. I backed away, chest tight, head swimming. That's when I heard the voice. Soft, urgent, barely more than breath.
Don't say yes again.
I turned sharply. The armoire was still shut. Tall, wooden, ugly. It had no handles, no hinges, just a dark seam down the middle.
Please, don't say yes again.
The voice cracked. I stepped toward it like I was sleepwalking. It sounded like Vivian, my best friend, the one who vanished last winter without a word. One day, she was texting me about Christmas dresses and bad dates. The next, she was gone. I never heard from her again. Until now. I pressed my hand to the armoire door. It opened. No resistance, no creak. Just a soft exhale of stale air. Inside was empty except for a single object resting in the centre. A cell phone. Old model, black, slightly scuffed like it had been dropped. It lit up in my hand. One missed call. Vivian. Before I could breathe, it began ringing again. Incoming call. Vivian. I didn't hesitate. I answered. A rush of static, then breath. Shaky. Close. And then her voice. Clear. Familiar. Terrified.
You're in the wrong dress.
The call ended. The screen went black. I stood there staring at the dead phone like it might light up again. Vivian. It was Vivian. My best friend. My Vivian. Not a ghost. Not a hallucination. Not some weird coincidence. I knew that voice. I knew the shape of it. The way it caught on vowels when she was scared. The way she said, don't. Like she meant never again. She was trying to warn me. And then I felt the dress tighten again. High around my ribs this time. Like it didn't like what it had just heard. Like it was correcting me. I looked down, lifted the hem. 3 names had been there when I first checked earlier on. Harold, Mimi, and Viv. I stared at them like they meant nothing, like they were strangers. I hadn't realised, not then. But now my stomach flipped. Viv wasn't just a name. It was hers. It was Vivian. The thread began to twitch beneath my fingers. The air in the room felt heavier now, like it was watching me breathe. I lowered the phone. The screen stayed black. The armoire creaked shut behind me, all on its own. My hands trembled as I looked down. The hem of the dress was moving. Not flaring, not dragging. Tugging. Little rhythmic pulls, like something underneath was stitching from the inside out. I knelt slowly. The lace creaked like it was protesting, like it didn't want to be seen mid-transformation. I lifted the fabric. A new name was appearing. Half-stitched, pale thread, still wet. Beatrix. My name. Not a nickname. Not the name I told people. The full one. The only one my mother said when she was angry. The one Vivian used to tease me about in high school. Don't be dramatic, Beatrix. No one's ever going to make you wear white. I stared at the new letters, then looked a few inches to the left, where Viv had been. She was gone. The thread was still faintly visible, like someone had tried to pull it out without leaving a mark. But I remembered where it was. I remembered the spacing. This isn't being added. It's being replaced. The dress hadn't made room for me. It had chosen me and was erasing her to do it. The thread burned under my fingers. Beatrix. Half-stitched, but moving faster now, like the dress couldn't wait. Like it was excited. Like it was hungry. I dropped the hem and stumbled backward. The gown constricted around my waist. Tighter and tighter. The bodice dug into my ribs like wire. The neckline shot up my throat. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't scream. All I could do was claw at the seams, at the sleeves, at anything I could tear. Nothing gave. No zipper, no buttons, no way out. I slammed against the armoire, empty again. I pulled at the vanity drawer, locked now. The air was choking me. The lace was climbing. Every inch of the dress was stitching itself tighter. Tighter and tighter. My skin tore first. I felt it happen. A split along my collarbone, then my side. I didn't stop. I grabbed the edge of the cracked mirror and ripped a shard free. It cut my palm open. Blood hit the floor with a slap. I turned it into my hand and stabbed downward into the bodice, into the dress, into my own shoulder. The fabric screamed, a high, keening whine that wasn't sound, just pressure, bursting behind my ears like something dying. The dress spasmed. I stabbed it again. The mirror shard caught the lace at my waist and dragged through it like wet paper. Blood slicked my hands. The satin turned dark. My knees buckled, but I kept tearing. The seam gave way. The lining split. I could move again. The room seemed to notice. The TV flicked on. The lights went black. From somewhere deep in the walls, I heard footsteps. I didn't wait. I threw myself at the wall. Not the door. There wasn't one. Just a flat surface near the vanity with a faint brass outline. I hit it with everything I had left. The second time, my shoulder cracked. The third time, it gave. A chunk of drywall shattered inward. Beyond it, a narrow hallway. Concrete floor. No lights. I didn't think. I pulled myself through the gap, slicing open my arms, my hip, the skin of my back. The dress caught on the jagged edge. I heard it rip in half behind me. I didn't look back. I ran. Barefoot, bleeding. The white gown now soaked red, dragging like a second skin behind me. My name still echoed in my ears. Stitched, claimed. But I was out.